Good morning. I'll call this meeting to order. We have a quorum. All three commissioners are present. Commissioner Funn will lead us in the flag salute.
Please stand.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated.
Chairman, I move we approve the minutes of December 2nd, 2013.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Are there any changes, additions, deletions, corrections? Call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We do have public comment. Mr. Bob Gunther.
Yes, thank you. I'm Bob Gunther. I live at 376 State Route 508 in Chehalis. I was here and testified a couple weeks ago about biosolids and the applications in Lewis County and the fact that, from what I understand, the county has very little, if any, regulatory authority over biosolids being shipped into the county. I just wanted to report to you, I just left my place less than a half an hour ago. I stopped in front of the entry to the Fire Mountain Farms biosolids, I call it the dump. No less than 3 trucks came, 3 trucks, and the 4th one I passed when I left, or passed me when I left the site. So there was 4 trucks within 15 minutes, and I would say that those 4 trucks each probably had about 20 to 40,000 pounds of biosolids, all right? When we talk about agronomic application, just in 4 trucks this morning, added up, and it's about 150 acres of ground there. So if we talk about agronomic applications, and that continues, I think that the county should be aware of the amount of tonnage that's being dumped on that land over a period of time. If we look at that, I think we need to be thinking about running some legislation that the county could get better control on what is being dumped in their county. And that's through the Department of Ecology. The other thing I wanted to mention to you is that the peripheral wells have been tested on November 17th and 18th, and so far for contamination around that lagoon, and so far the department does not have the results of those tests. So I'm just telling you, if the tonnage this morning that came in there is an indicator of what the total tonnage would be for the year, it would be interesting to see what goes on that 150 acres.
I was under the impression that there's nothing growing this time of year at 9 degrees. The second thing, so I don't know what they're planning.
Well, it's being dumped into the lagoon, getting ready for application in the spring.
So it is being in the lagoon, it's not on the field?
It's being dumped in the lagoon. I watched that, and all I'm saying is you're going to pile up, well, hundreds of tons in that lagoon. I guarantee you, I don't believe it will be shipped to any other location. It's all going to be put on that one location. So that's a way that the county could actually monitor how many tons is being dumped on that small acreage per year, every year. And I just thought you should know that.
You know that the Wahkiakum County is challenging ecology on authority to have counties participate in that regulatory process.
Yes.
And we're awaiting the outcome of the appeal.
Well, I think we definitely need some control on what's going on in our county. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
I move that we approve the notice agenda, call for bids regarding the 2014 chip rock proposal, resolution number 13-559.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Mr. Elsey.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tim Elsey, Public Works Director. As you're aware, every year we go out to bid for chip rock for our countywide chip seal proposal, and this year we're going out a little bit earlier than we do, or that we have historically. This is to allow the rock manufacturers plenty of time to provide this rock for us. We're going out in 3 different schedules this year. One will be countywide, and then the other 2 is half will be, well, about half will be east of Mossy Rock, and the other half will be west of Mossy Rock. And this is to allow the smaller pits to compete for this project.
And my understanding, Tim, is that was done as a result of meeting with some of the people who own pits and quarries and working an agreement out with them that this would be a good format to be able to use.
That's correct. Before we went out to bid last year, we met with the different quarries and asked them what we could do to provide a bid package that was more suited to how they would prefer to bid this and more attractive to them. And they preferred that we split it up. We certainly can't go out for a bid in every single pit, and that would be pretty onerous, not only for us to keep track of, but to write the contracts and for the different pit owners as well. But if by splitting it into two different distinct projects, it allows the smaller pit owners to compete closer to home.
And also by bidding on it earlier, it helps.
Yes. Yes. We are staying with the same specification that we wrote last year. It worked out really well for us. The rock was incredibly clean, and we had very good rock retention on our chip seal projects.
Any further discussion? Then I'll call for the question on the notice agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? That passes.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve the consent agenda. There are resolutions number 2 through 8, and resolutions 13-560 through 13-566.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. Commissioner Gross.
Resolution number 13560, item number 2, is the approval of warrants and claims against the county. There were 195 regular warrants totaling $944,034.97. In addition, there were 201 payroll warrants and 450 automatic deposits for payroll in the amount of $3,271,986.45. I get stuck with the council right there. Item number 3 is a cancellation of a warrant issued to Esco Pacific Signs Incorporated. It will be reissued, and it is in the amount of $116.01.
Thank you, sir.
Tim Ellsey speaking to item number 4 on your consent agenda, which is initiating county road projects and assigning county road project numbers. Once again, as you're aware, we do this every year for any new projects that are going to be placed on the County Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP, or the Annual Construction Program, the ACP. This year, we only have 2 projects that we're assigning numbers to, and that would be the 2014 Countywide 3R Program, and we do that every year, and also the 2014 Countywide Miscellaneous Safety and Guardrail, and again, we do that every year. Projects have to be on the TIP for us to receive federal funding, and so we place these on the TIP every year, and with the Countywide 3R, that has to be placed on the TIP for CRAB to understand how much money we're spending with county forces, and that's part of our annual construction program. So we have to have distinct project numbers and keep track of all of our costs for any project that has a CRP so that we can report that in the future, and this is fulfilling those requirements.
Could you remind us what 3R means?
That's resurfacing, restructure, or, gosh, you had to ask me that.
Rehabilitation?
Rehabilitation,
Repair?
and resurfacing, I think.
Thank you.
The next item on your agenda is number 5, resolution number 13-563, approving an administrative agreement for the acquisition of additional right-of-way for Skate Creek Bridge. As you're aware, we've had the Skate Creek Bridge scour mitigation project on the TIP for many years. We are to the point of acquiring all of our right-of-way for this project. We've worked with this property owner. Actually, there are 2 owners of one parcel, and this is Leo Gellings and Linda Lewis. We originally were just going to purchase an easement from this property owner, and for the amount of $24,900. That was accepted by the property owners, but then they came back and said that they would like to also just sell the parcel north of the bridge, and it was a 3.24 acre parcel. We negotiated with them. The parcel itself was worth $42,200 plus $19,120 for the timber on the parcel, for a total administrative agreement of $86,220. And we recommend entering into this administrative agreement with Linda Lewis and Leo Gellings in the amount of $86,220 for the acquisition of the real property of 3.24 acres plus the easement agreement that we had prior. This project will provide scour mitigation on the Skate Creek Bridge by providing for 2 stream training structures north of the river and 3 south of the river, and we'll also put in large woody debris downstream of the structure as mitigation for the structures that we're putting into the river.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Danette York, Director of Public Health and Social Services, speaking to items 6 through 8. Resolution number 13-564 is to reappoint members to the Chemical Dependency Mental Health and Therapeutic Court Sales Tax Advisory Board. So this resolution reappoints 3 members, Dr. Tree Normoyle, who represents the mental health profession, Ruth Gutierrez, who represents the housing, and Neil Kirby, who is a member at large. All of their terms expired on September 30th of 2013, and they are being reappointed through September 30th of 2016. Resolution number 13-565 is approving a consolidated homeless grant contract with the Washington State Department of Commerce to provide housing assistance. So this is a consolidated housing contract, so it has, they have combined the ESFP, which stands for Emergency Shelter and Food Program, and the HEN, H-E-N, which stands for Housing and Essential Needs Program, into one grant. This is the contract that we sign with the State Department of Commerce, and then we will subcontract these funds out to local agency partners, so you will see the subcontracts coming forth later. This contract is for 2 years, January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2015, for a total of $734,716. Of that amount, $489,930 will be used in the year 2014. The remainder will be budgeted for the year 2015. And the reason that that is not half exactly is because the housing and essential needs portion of this consolidated grant has just been put into the consolidated grant this year, and they still are working out the total. So we anticipate more funds being allocated to Lewis County in 2015, which will increase that year's total. And resolution number 13-566 is awarding funds for the Chemical Dependency Mental Health and Therapeutic Court Program from the 0.1% sales tax. And these awards are to agencies to provide prevention of and assistance of mental health and chemical dependency services. So a general request for proposals was released by the Sales Tax Advisory Board in July of 2013, and we received written and oral proposals presented to a subcommittee of the Advisory Board. The Advisory Board then made the recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on what community-based projects should be funded through this program. The total amount recommended to award is $205,600 per year, and the contracts will be for a two-year period. The breakdown is $600 per year to the National Association of Mental Illness, Lewis County chapter, $90,000 per year to Fresh Start, $30,000 per year to Centralia College Child and Family Studies, $30,000 per year to Cascade Mental Health to work with Winlock and Napa Vine school districts, $15,000 per year to Cascade to work with the Chehalis school district, and $40,000 to the Eugenia Center. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion on the consent agenda? I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is approved. Next, we'll have a hearing on ordinance 1248, enhanced 911 excise tax. For the hearing, we will first have a staff report, followed by a question and answer period. We will then close the question and answer period and open the hearing for public testimony. So we'll start out with the staff report. Mr. Mike Strozik.
Good morning, Commissioners. For the record, Michael Strozik, Director of Central Services, and with me today is Craig Larson, our 911 Communications Manager. The hearing this morning is in reference to proposed ordinance 1248, amending Lewis County Code 3.40, which is concerning the E911 communication excise tax, specifically imposing the excise tax on what we would consider, as the public knows, prepaid wireless cell phones when the transactions occur within the jurisdictional boundaries of Lewis County, and as required under second substitute engrossed House Bill 1971 and a recent 2010 Washington State Supreme Court decision referenced TracFone versus the Department of Revenue. Some history on the excise taxes. In 1981, the Washington State Legislature authorized counties to impose excise tax on telephone lines. When we talk about telephone lines back then, we're talking about what we referred to as a hard line, wired line, what came into your residence, to fund emergency communications. And this was done under laws of 1981, Chapter 160, Section 3. In 1991, the voters approved Referendum 42, imposing a uniform statewide tax on landlines to support the E911 system. In 1994, we started to develop the cell phone technology. So the Washington State Legislature extended the excise tax to cell phones, specifically amending RCW 82.14B-020 through 040 to include cell phones. In January 1st of 2013, the legislature extended tax to all radio access lines in the state of Washington. What that basically did is change the technology as cell phones progress. They now use radio waves and radio frequencies to transmit data. And so the law was changed on January 1st of 2013 to incorporate that. And as a result of these changes, Department of Revenue sued the TracFone company. TracFone was a major provider of the prepaid telephone systems for taxes as a result. And as a result of that, in 2010, the state Supreme Court under docket 82-741-9, under a unanimous decision, said the tax must be collected on prepaid cell phones uniformly. Specifically, when you read the 75-page ruling on the tax, the state Supreme Court says the excise tax needs to be applied uniformly on all phones. Since prepaid cell phones now make up almost 30% of all cell phones, there was no tax put on those, so the state Supreme Court ruled that that was not a uniform taxation, and so they changed it. During the 2013 legislative session, second engrossed second substitute House Bill 1971 was passed. This is a result of the state Supreme Court ruling of 2010, the Washington Attorney General's Office, and the state Department of Revenue meeting with cell phone providers to work out an agreement to bring them into compliance with the state Supreme Court ruling. Therefore, ordinance number 1248, which you have before you for consideration today, will amend Lewis County Code 3.40 to allow for collection of excise taxes now required by law within Lewis County. It adds the following changes in language to our current 3.40 thing. Under definitions, can't see here, small print, the word consumer has been added. The word prepaid wireless has been added, along with telecommunications services, retail transactions, and seller. This is important, this language, in that the tax will actually be collected at the point of sale on prepaid phone cards and cellular services. An example would be if you go to Radio Shack and you buy a $50 Boost Mobile cell phone, $50 per month. Radio Shack will then collect the 70-cent local tax, the 25-cent state excise tax. In addition, as a result of meetings with retail consumers at the state level, they will also be entitled to a 5% transaction fee from the state. In addition to those changes, there's 2 new sections added to Lewis County Code 3.40, specifically Section 4, which reads, "There is hereby levied an excise tax of 70 cents per month on the use of each radio access line by subscribers whose primary use as set forth in the records of the Radio Communication Service Company providing such radio access line is located within Lewis County as authorized by RCW 82.14B.030. Section 5, which will be added, reads, "There is hereby levied an excise tax of 70 cents per retail transaction as defined by RCW 82.14B.020 on the use of each radio access line by consumers whose retail transaction occurs within Lewis County as authorized under RCW 82.14.030. Specifically, as a recap on this, this will impose the excise tax that is currently collected on all cell phones that are held on those on month-to-month type of contracts. It imposes the identical tax to the prepaid one to bring us within the state Supreme Court ruling that the tax has to be applied uniformly across the board. This ordinance, if approved today, will go into effect January 1st of 2014. The tax will be collected by the State of Washington Department of Revenue under our current agreement with them for the collection of the taxes. They will then remit it to us. Usually it's about 60 days late with the rest of our excise taxes.
Mike, this money that's raised from this tax comes back to the county, and it's restricted use to the 911 center?
Correct, Commissioner. The Washington State excise tax is very restricted. It comes into what we would call Fund 107, which is a communications fund. But within that fund, we have to report every month to the state of Washington on excise tax. Excise tax by statute can only be used for the processing or support of 911 phone calls and call receiving. So we can pay for equipment, telephone service, CAD dispatch stuff, call receiver salaries in that type of expense. It cannot be used to pay for dispatching. And when I say dispatching, I'm talking about the actual push the button, talk on the radio to send the units. There is a distinct separation from the time the call is processed in the call center, received, to when it is ready to be dispatched to the patrol units or the fire departments. When it is ready to be dispatched, that is when the excise tax money can no longer be used. By the referendum that was passed back in 1991, it is specifically to support 911 telecommunication services.
And Mike, can you give some idea of the funds that would be raised for local support?
Yeah. In 2014, in 2013, we're kind of flat right now as wireline services, which is the hard-mounted phones, are decreasing and everybody seems to be using a cell phone for their house. We're budgeting at $720,000 per year of excise tax revenue in Lewis County. As a result of the prepaid, we're not exactly sure what it's going to generate. We are hearing anywhere from 22 to 28% additional wireless revenue, which is approximately 120,000. We're conservative. We're saying 10% of our wireline revenue or wireless revenue will increase. So we're saying this may have a result of about $72,000. And to elaborate a little bit on your question, Commissioner Fund, the Communications Center total budget for 2014 is $2.6 million to provide 911 and dispatch services throughout Lewis County.
Any other questions on the board? Does anybody in the audience have any other questions? Any other questions? Then I will close the question and answer period. We'll start out with Mike. Would you like your opening comments be incorporated into the record of the hearing?
Please.
Does the board have any comments, any testimony? There are no public testimony for this. Then I will close the hearing for public testimony and entertain a motion.
I move that we approve ordinance 1248 for enhanced 911 excise tax.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Then I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes.
Thank you, Mike.
We will now have a hearing on ordinance 1249, a moratorium upon the establishments involved in the production, processing, and retail of marijuana and related products. This is Lee Napier.
Thank you. Lee Napier, representing Community Development on this public hearing for ordinance 1249. Little background, Initiative 502, or I-502, passed during the November 2012 general election and took effect December 6th of 2012. With the passage of I-502, the Washington State Liquor Control Board was directed to develop rules and regulations to determine the regulatory measures for producing, processing, and selling marijuana for non-medical purposes. As the board is fully aware, the Washington State Liquor Control Board developed such rules, and county staff are concerned that marijuana-related land uses could become established that are inconsistent with or conflict with not only Liquor Control Board rules, but local county rules. Are current land use controls adequate, which is one of the functions of my department? No, it is the opinion of staff that the marijuana-associated land uses and business practices do not appear to be the same as retail or commercial establishments that are currently described in county code, and this would be Title 17. Therefore, additional time is needed to study existing and potential land use impacts, and a moratorium is suggested. As the board is aware, but for the benefit of the audience, a moratorium is adopted pursuant to the authority of RCW 3670-795, and it's a method by which local governments may preserve the status quo. So the county would need at least, community development would need at least 6 months period to conduct an appropriate analysis and to develop appropriate recommendations for the Lewis County Planning Commission to consider potential impacts from marijuana-associated land uses. The Planning Commission recommendation would then come before the county commissioners. Some of the things that the Planning Commission may consider: conversion of residential uses into marijuana cultivation and processing facilities, so removing valuable housing stock from the community; degrading the neighborhoods and commercial district aesthetics due to offensive odors; increased nighttime traffic, parking issues, loitering from potential purchasers, environmental damage from chemicals being discharged into surrounding and off-site soil and storm and sanitary sewers; serious risk of fire due to overloaded electrical service connections used to operate grow lights and fans; illegal structure modifications; and unintended consequences of marijuana-related land uses, converting agricultural lands to other types of crops. So in closing, I would like to summarize that the recommended action before the Lewis County Commissioners today is that you declare a moratorium. And with the declaration of the moratorium, the effect would be that the submission, acceptance, processing, or approval of any permit applications or license for any establishment involving the sale, use, growing, manufacturing, or processing of marijuana would be curtailed. The creation by an owner or operator of any land or building of any new use of such land or building for the sale, use, growing, distribution, manufacturing, or processing of marijuana and related products would also be curtailed. The moratorium adopted by this ordinance, 1249, would be effective immediately upon adoption and should remain in effect for 6 months, unless subsequently extended by the Board of County Commissioners. That's it for my presentation. Any questions?
The board have any questions? Are there any questions? Are there any questions? You want to grab to see if that other sheet's there too? Then I will close the question and answer period, and I will open the public meeting for public testimony. I have no one signed up to talk about the moratorium. Are there anybody interested in making a comment on the board? If there is no public testimony, then I will close the hearing for public testimony and entertain an ordinance, a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve ordinance number 1249, establishing a moratorium for 6 months upon the establishment of production, processing, and retail marijuana-related products facilities.
Second?
Motion has been made and seconded. I need to go back one step and say, would you like your comments be entered into the record of public hearing?
Please, thank you.
Now that that is taken care of, I will call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Ordinance is passed.
Seeing no further business on our agenda, I move we adjourn.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned.